Before I go into my prepared remarks, let me just thank Jose Manuel for his commitment, his dedication to the Caribbean. He has ensured that we are a priority on ECLAC's agenda, and that should not be forgotten. So we look forward to continuing to work with him and his team on Caribbean priorities and issues. Allow me to begin with a simple but important proposition. Caribbean issues are regional issues, and regional issues are increasingly global issues. What the Caribbean is confronting today is not peripheral to the international development agenda. On the contrary, it sits at its very center. The realities faced by Caribbean SIDS, climate vulnerability, recurrent disasters, financing pressures, exposure to external shocks, and structural development constraints are among the clearest tests of whether the international community can move from recognition to action and from commitment to implementation. That is precisely why the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, the ABAS, is so important. It gives us a framework that already reflects intergovernmentally agreed priorities. The task before us, therefore, is not to revisit the need for a framework, but to accelerate its implementation in ways that are practical, strategic, and responsive to the realities of the Caribbean. This panel invites us to do exactly that. The Caribbean brings a very particular urgency to this discussion. Ours is one of the most disaster-prone subregions in the world. In recent years, we have witnessed the impacts of major hurricanes, volcanic activity, earthquakes, and increasingly, the severe economic and ecological consequences of recurrent sargassum influxes. These are not isolated events. They are recurrent and compounding shocks that affect lives, livelihoods, infrastructure, fiscal space, and long-term development prospects. For Caribbean SIDS, disaster risk management is therefore not a sectoral issue. It is a central pillar of sustainable development. At the same time, the Caribbean should not be viewed only through the lens of vulnerability. It should also be seen as a space of policy innovation. Across the subregion, countries have been advancing practical and forward-looking responses to complex challenges, whether through innovative financing instruments, strengthened resilience mechanisms, improvements in data systems, or new forms of regional and interregional collaboration. In that sense, the Caribbean is not only confronting the future early, it is also generating lessons and solutions with value well beyond the subregion. This is where South-South cooperation becomes especially significant. For SIDS, South-South and SIDS-to-SIDS cooperation offers more than just solidarity. They provide pathways for the exchange of practical knowledge, tested policy experience, institutional strengthening, technical cooperation, and context-specific innovation. They allow countries facing similar constraints to learn from one another in ways that are more agile, more grounded, and more directly applicable and conventional than conventional models of support. And there's already much of which to build on. Across Latin America and the Caribbean, there are important examples of cooperation that show the value of shared expertise and collective problem solving. These experiences remind us that South-South cooperation is not an abstract aspiration. It is an instrument that can help mobilize solutions, strengthen resilience, and support implementation. A second important dimension of this discussion is the role of data, evidence, and institutional capacity. Effective disaster risk management depends not only on preparedness and financing, but also on robust information systems, reliable indicators, strong national institutions, and the ability to translate evidence into timely policy action. This is essential for strengthening decision-making, improving reporting, and ensuring that implementation is measurable and accountable. In a context of overlapping risks and constrained resources, better data and stronger partnerships around data are indispensable. A third point is the importance of regional coordination and collective action. No Caribbean country can adequately address these challenges in isolation. The scale of the vulnerabilities we face requires cooperation across countries and across institutions. It requires stronger platforms for dialogue, better alignment of efforts, and a sustained focus on implementation. It also calls for partnerships that enable the strategic mobilization of human, financial, technical, and technological resources in support of resilience building. Today's panel is therefore an opportunity to reflect on a number of interrelated questions. How South-South and states-to-states cooperation can support the operationalization of the Abbas in the Caribbean. How data partnerships can strengthen disaster risk management and strategic decision-making. How lessons learned from recent shocks can inform more effective responses. How resources can be mobilized and used more strategically. And how regional institutions and partnerships can help facilitate collaboration and implementation. Above all, this session is an opportunity to reaffirm a broader message that the Caribbean must be recognized not only as a region of special vulnerability, but also as a region of strategic relevance, practical innovation, and valuable experience. The challenges of Caribbean states may be acute, but so too is the region's capacity to contribute meaningfully to wider regional and global thinking on resilience and sustainable development.